After catching my wife cheating with her married boss, I quietly let her believe she'd traded up. But while she lost everything chasing lust, I built a new life, new career, and a real family with the woman who actually loved me. My parents immigrated from West Germany in 1979, well before the reunification of their home country. My mother was pregnant with me when they left, and I was born here in Canada. They landed in Montreal, and my father set about looking for work as a goldsmith. He was trained in Germany, and with his background, he had little trouble finding a job. I was an only child for a while, but a couple of years later my mother gave birth to my brother, Michael Young. Mike is quite an athlete, currently playing professional soccer with a Montreal Impact. My father prospered in his trade, and not long after Mike was born, he opened his own jewelry shop in the West End. He makes a good living for himself and my mother. They own a nice house in Beaconsfield and spend some time in Florida in the winter. My father has 2 talented goldsmiths working for him now, so he isn't tied to his shop every minute of every day. When I talk to Mom, I get the feeling she is very pleased and satisfied with their life. I am happy for them. I was an ordinary student in school, as much interested in friends and hockey as I was in my studies. I graduated with a C+ average with my only really good grade in the English language. Fat lot of good that did me. In Quebec, I immediately went out looking for a job. My spoken French was only adequate, while my written French was much better. It was a struggle to find a decent job with the future in French-speaking Quebec. With the Part 1 Cable Corps running the show, they had little tolerance for Anglophones, and I had problems finding meaningful employment. I finally took a job with the Vancouver-based wholesale building materials company that was just setting up in Montreal. I worked on the customer service desk for a year before an opening came up in Vancouver. It was a bigger operation and paid more, so I put in my application. I was surprised when I was accepted. I thought there would be the dogfight for the job, but I learned later it was my French skills that tipped the scales. I never did figure out why that would be important in British Columbia. I moved to Vancouver and immediately discovered I had found my future home. It was so completely different from Montreal, so much more modern and West Coast. Everything seemed new. Of course, I landed there during a nice summer, and that didn't hurt either. One trip to the beaches and I was hooked. It might have been the scenery or the mountains or maybe even the freighters anchored in the bay. I didn't care. This was where I wanted to be. I haven't changed my mind, and I don't suppose I ever will. I made some friends along the way, some from work and some from the hockey games we played at the 3-rink multiplex. I'd never played junior hockey, but I loved the game, and since I was single and had lots of time, I joined the beer league. Lo and behold, I was a first-line defenseman on an electrical company's team. It didn't take long to figure out it was because I could skate backward. I didn't care. It was fun and kept me fit and occupied. At the end of the season, we had an outdoor barbecue for the team and all the families and friends who had supported us. It was there that I met Judy Hansen. Judy and I hit it off because, like me, she was an Anglophone from Montreal. In her case, she was from Dorval, just west of the airport. We had lots to talk about, and it got us off on the way to becoming a couple. We've exchanged numbers, and I called her a couple of days later and asked her for a date. She said yes, and that's how it all started. Judy is a good-looking woman. Not a knockout, mind you, but still very attractive. I sneaked a look at her driver's license one day and found she was 170 cm, 132 pounds. She has dark brown hair cut short around her neck, and she needs little to take care of it. She calls it her wash and wear hair. She doesn't wear a lot of makeup, but in my opinion, she doesn't need to. She has a nice figure and great legs. When she wears slacks, she looks very elegant. She has excellent posture, which helps accentuate her good looks. Judy and I went out regularly, and within a year I proposed and she accepted, although not immediately. We had been discussing the future before I popped the question, and it was obvious to me that she wanted some assurance that I was going to be something more than a customer service representative. I told her that I had asked for an opportunity in sales and had been promised a chance when the next vacancy came about. That seemed to satisfy her. We had been close for a few months, and Judy was enthusiastic about our relationship. We spent time together several times a week, and she appeared to be happy with how things were going. Judy worked at a laboratory that did medical testing for private clinics around the province. She had trained hard to become a technician and was very proud of her status. She liked the work and the people she worked with. They were all women except for their boss, Bob. When we planned our future life together, We sat down and looked at what our combined incomes would be. If I got the sales job, we would have close to $90,000, not counting any bonuses I might earn. It might even allow us to buy a house in the red-hot market we were facing. So Judy accepted my proposal, conditional on my getting the sales job. Happily, it came along a few months later, and we set the date. I called my parents and my brother to tell them the good news, and they were very happy for me. Judy indicated her parents were a little more wary, but happy just the same. Both parents made plans to be at the wedding. We were married in a small church in the suburbs that had time available. The following April, I met Judah's family for the first time, and I have to say they were pretty cold toward me. I wondered why, but Judy dismissed my concerns. My folks were in good spirits and welcomed Judy to the family, but again, her parents didn't seem to want to mine either. On the other hand, Judy seemed to be quite friendly with Mike, perhaps because he was a professional athlete, or maybe they just hit it off. At least it took some of the pressure off during the reception. We went on a short honeymoon to Victoria and Seattle before coming home and settling down in our rented apartment. I was working hard to do well in my new sales job, and so far my boss was happy with my results. I had some objectives to reach this year, and by mid-year I was pretty sure I was going to achieve them. Judy was happy to continue working in the lab. Her hours were more predictable than mine, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mine were irregular, often spending 4 or more hours on the road traveling from customer to customer, arriving home after 6 p.m., after battling heavy commuter traffic. Life went along quite smoothly for us. We finally saved enough money to put a down payment on a townhouse in the suburbs and celebrated our 3rd anniversary a week after we moved in. This would be our stepping stone to a proper home someday in the future. We talked about starting a family, but Judy was adamant that she didn't want to do that until we were more financially secure. She never was able to articulate just when that would be, but since we were both young, not yet 25, there was no panic. As with any marriage, things tend to slow down a bit in the intimacy department. Before we were married, we were close 4 or 5 times a week, except when she was having her period that dropped to 3 times weekly. After the first 3 years, we were down to once or twice a week. When you're working hard as I was, you don't notice these things right away. But after a while I did and mentioned it to Judy. Judy, we don't seem to be spending as much time together as we used to. Is there any reason for that? I started the conversation after supper one night, when we were just sitting quietly on the back balcony of the townhouse. No, why would there be? The way she answered sounded strange to me. Defensive, but a bit aggressive too. I don't know. We used to connect at least 3 times a week, but not lately. Well, we're both working hard, and after all, you can't expect us to be full of energy every night. Again, I detected that slightly aggressive time. I do miss being close to you. It's something I really enjoy. I was trying to make it sound inviting. You'll just have to get used to enjoying it a little less often, for now. I'm not always in the mood, you know. I wasn't getting a very sympathetic hearing. I decided that in the interest of peace, I wouldn't pursue the matter any further. That night, when it would get revisited, our intimate moments didn't decline any further, and I eventually became accustomed to the reduced frequency, assuming that it was the pace that Judy found comfortable. I wanted more, but I had come to realize not all couples, regardless of how long they were together, would want the same things at the same time. When I thought about it, I really couldn't complain. We seemed to be happy and successful on our way to a long and fruitful marriage. I suppose it's hard to imagine how a happily married man could have a best friend who was a woman, but it happened to me. What's more remarkable about it is the fact that there was no romantic connotation to our friendship. It really was a best friends relationship. It all started when Cindy and Al Willows moved in next door. Our townhouse was an end unit, so we only had one attached neighbor. Cindy and Al proved to be an interesting but different couple. She was a stay-at-home mom with 2 children in elementary school, and Al was a car salesman at a local Chevrolet dealer. Cindy was a no-nonsense kind of gal with a wicked sense of humor, a quick mind, and a sharp tongue featuring some salty language. She was 30 years old and had been married to Al for 10 years. She was a bit taller than Judy, but had a much more developed figure. Her hair was reddish blonde, curly, and cut short. She had deep blue eyes and beautiful white teeth, which showed when she laughed, something she did often. Her complexion showed some scarring from acne, but she didn't seem self-conscious about it. She freely admitted that Al had knocked her up and then did the honorable thing and married her. They had 2 children, Annabeth, the 10-year-old now in grade 5, and Bradley, a 7-year-old. In Gray 2 Al, or Alvin, as Cindy occasionally called him when she was irritated with him. It was the same age as Cindy but had a different personality. He was a bit less than 6 feet tall with red curly hair, a runny complexion and big white teeth. He dressed in flashy suits with brightly colored ties, wearing a Rolex knockoff on his wrist and a large gold ring with a red stone on his right pinky. If someone had told him this is what a car salesman should wear, he must have believed them. If you listened to him, you'd think he was the general manager of the dealership instead of one of the rank-and-file salesmen. He was one of those guys that you either loved because he was always a beat, or who irritated the hell out of you because he never learned when to tone it down. Unfortunately, I was in the latter category. Judy didn't have too high an opinion of Cindy but seemed neutral toward Al. On the other hand, I liked the straightforward Cindy, and we became quite good friends over the next few months. I also liked her kids, Annie, as she was mostly known as polite and cute as a button. She would be a real heartbreaker in a few years. Her mother was a fine-looking woman to start with, but Annie was going to be something special. Brad was a fun-loving kid who loved to play and was always in good spirits. Like his sister, he was very polite, and that goes a long way with me. Unfortunately, Judy didn't want much to do with the kids, which worried me for our future. Was she sending me a message that she didn't want children? She couldn't help. But like these 2, could she? If we were going to have children, I wanted them to be just like Annie and Brad. It was this past spring that things started to go downhill for us. We had just about saved enough to buy a house after 6 years of marriage. Without any warning, I was called into a meeting at headquarters, and the entire staff was notified that the company had been sold to our competitor and that our branch would be closed just like that. I was unemployed. I had 4 months of severance, plus we had our savings. And it was a shock, and I was really knocked back. When I told Judy what had happened, she got mad. Mad at me for wasting my years with the company that just disappeared. Mad at the company, mad at life in general. I got the distinct impression she was disappointed in me, that I had let her down, that this was my fault. It didn't do my spirits any good to have that heaped on me. I started looking right away now, of course, but there were no jobs locally in my field of expertise. Judy would get up, give me a quick peck on the cheek, and head off to work. I would scour the want ads, try to arrange appointments, and drink more coffee than I was used to. After 2 fruitless weeks, I was feeling depressed, and I guess it showed. One morning, I was sitting on my bedroom balcony, coffee in hand, staring into the distance, when I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, handsome. Got any more of that coffee?" It was Cindy, and I had to smile. She had decided, for whatever reason, that I should be known as handsome and freely called me that. Even when Al and Judy were present. It didn't seem to upset either of them, so I just accepted the moniker. "Come on over." The back door was unlocked. "I'll meet you in the kitchen." I was reaching for the cream when Cindy pranced through the back door into the kitchen and flashed me her best smile. Just seeing her do that helped lift my spirits. "So what are you doing home in the middle of the morning these days?" she asked. "I wish I was on vacation," I replied. "I got let go the Friday before last. The company has been sold and the whole staff is out of work." "That stinks," she said, "so I take it you're looking." "Yeah. Unfortunately, I was in a shrinking industry and it just shrunk a lot further. It's pretty much all I know. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I've got my resume in and all the other places, but it doesn't look good. I can try at the retail level, but they don't pay anything like what I was earning." She muttered, and I watched her as her mind started working. I knew Cindy well enough by now that she had already taken on the responsibility of trying to help. It was interesting to see the contrast between Judy and Cindy's attitudes. I sat quietly sipping my coffee as Cindy pondered. "Jake, remind me, when you were in school, what was your best subject?" "English? I seem to have a feel for it, writing. For a while I thought about being a writer, maybe working on a newspaper or a MAGA. Unfortunately, that's another industry that's getting smaller." She said, "Yeah, I thought you told me that. I have a girlfriend who's a writer. She writes manuals and instructions and things like that. She works from home. All she needs is a computer and an internet connection. She told me a while ago that she was turning down business because she was working so much. I don't know how much it pays, but she has a nice new Mazda and a fancy condo in the city. It must pay something. I'd never even thought of that," I admitted. "Tell you what, handsome, we'll give her a call. If I can use your phone and you can talk to her, maybe she can put you onto something great." Thank you, I replied. Her name was Paula Woods, and I caught her just at the right time when Cindy handed me the phone. I offered to call back later when she wasn't so busy, but she said she was taking a break, and since I was a friend of Cindy, she'd be happy to talk to me. Paula had been in the same situation I was in, out of work and needing a job. She had answered an ad in one of the local papers and met with the manager of an import-export business. He needed someone to write manuals and instructions for imported products that came from China and other Far East countries. The English versions they were sending were useless, if not downright hilarious. He wanted a practical instruction sheet in English for his customers that would give them the right information. Paula signed on and has never looked back. They keep after me about finding someone who can translate into French to their paying one of these translation services, but it's very expensive. Do you want someone in-house to handle it? You can find bilingual people, but not writers. He needs both together. He's also in the machinery business, and it's a real problem getting a decent owner's manual prepared. That's not something I can do. Paula gave me the name of the agency that was importing the machines, as well as the name of her contact. I asked if I could mention her name, and she happily agreed. I turned the phone over to Cindy for the girls to have a quick chat while I poured myself and her another coffee. Cindy, you and Paula may just have saved my life. I don't know how to thank you. No need, it was fun to watch you light up again. You looked pretty down this morning. Yeah, well, I don't think Judy has come to grips with our situation yet. She's not very happy with me being out of work. It really puts a crimp in our plans. Jesus, Jake, you didn't get fired. What happened to you happens to all kinds of people every day. It isn't their fault, it's just the way things are right now. I don't know how many times Al has come home with a hangdog look, because he was down near the bottom of the totem pole that month, wondering if they were going to let him go. I give him a little pep talk and he'd feel better the next morning. That sounds like a winning formula, I agreed, feeling a bit envious of all that Cindy could handle a situation that way. When Judy was so negative, I picked up the phone again and called the number I had copied from Paula, asking for Mr. Lewis. He came on the line a minute later, and I told him I had been talking to Paula Woods and that she suggested I call him. I explained that I could write in French as well as composed copy fairly well, and would be willing to give him a free sample to prove my point. Mr. Lewis, who spoke fairly good English, jumped at the chance, asking if I could meet him that afternoon. It just so happened I had the afternoon free, and we arranged an appointment for 2 p.m. I hung up the phone and walked over to Cindy, giving her a big hug. You don't know how good this feels, Cindy, I said, nearly in tears. I had a cheat chance, and I was going to grab it with both hands. Cindy just grinned and sipped her coffee, glad to help. She headed back home just after 11:00, and I whipped upstairs to shower, shave, and brush my teeth. I picked out a clean dress shirt, my navy blazer and tan slacks, choosing to change after I had made my lunch. No point in taking a chance on spilling food on my clean shirt. I met with Mr. Lewis promptly at 2 that afternoon, and he ushered me into his office. He was a balding mid-50s Asian man, with bad teeth and a rumpled suit. I began to wonder if maybe he couldn't afford proper translation services and was just looking for someone who worked cheap. On the other hand, Paula had said she was happy working with him, so the least I could do is listen. I import many machines from China and Thailand. Some are for plastics manufacturing and some for molding containers. Others are for woodworking. The instructions they sent are in Chinese, and then someone has tried to translate them into English. Even I cannot tell what they're trying to explain. I have to read the Chinese to find out. My customers are usually not Chinese, so I need to have good English instructions. Now I want to sell to Jane's stores, and in Quebec, I must have French instructions before they will take my products. I am paying very high prices for translation services, and then I have to go back more than once because they do not understand the machinery and how it functions. I need someone who can understand the equipment and the instructions. He finished and sat quietly, his fingers laced in front of his chest. I understand your problem. The only thing I can suggest is that we give it a try, and then if I can do the work, we can work out a schedule that works for both of us. Agreed. Yes, that is a good suggestion. I hope you can do this job. It would be very helpful to my business, and I would make it worthwhile for you, he promised. Why don't you give me an example and we'll see how it goes? I can work here, or I can take it home and bring it back tomorrow or whenever I'm done. I think you would find my computer difficult to use, he smiled. I suggest you use your machine and let me know when you're finished. We can review the results. Then good. If you'll show me the instructions, We'll get going. He walked to a side table and took a thin, multi-page folder off the top of a pile, handing it to me. "Come with me," he said. He led me out into his warehouse, and I was immediately surrounded by crates of equipment as well as open machinery sitting on the floor. It was all new and painted. Some pieces I recognized and others I did not. "This is the machine that your instructions are for. Please look it over. If you have any questions, please ask." I nodded as he stood by me while I compared the drawings in the manual with the actual machine. They looked identical, but appearances can be deceiving. "How would you rate the accuracy of these drawings?" I asked him. "Most of them are quite good. Occasionally, they will send old drawings with new machines, and that causes much difficulty. Then I have to go back to the factory and wait for new drawings. I have machines on the floor that I have paid for, which I cannot sell. Very bad for business, I can imagine. Well, this set of drawings looks pretty much like this machine, so we'll get started. If I run into problems, we'll call you. This first job is a free trial, as I said. I want to find out if I can do this job and then see if I can make a living at it." He nodded with a smile. "But why is precaution?" I slid into my car and started for home, feeling hopeful that this would turn out to be something worthwhile. It had nothing to do with my previous job, but on the surface it seemed much more interesting. If I could make it work, I was sure I would be happier. It didn't take long for Judy to pour cold water on it. "What do you know about machinery? How can you possibly make any money out of this?" "Well, I've talked to someone who is already making a living at it. She works from home most of the time, which is what I would like to be able to do." "Oh, great. You sit around all day drinking coffee while I work my butt off in the lab. Why do you think that if I take the job I would be doing it here? It would also cut our expenses, no commuting. Seems to me it would be a better situation for us. You're going to have to show me that you can earn a living, Jake. I have my doubts. It can't be that easy, or everyone would be doing it. Keep in mind that I have a mechanical mind as well as some skills in writing. On top of that, I am bilingual, which is common in this part of the country. I think I've got a good chance, but I won't know until I try." "How much is this guy paying you for this job?" "Nothing. It's a freebie to show him I can do the job, and then I can figure out what my time is worth. If I set a price now, it may be too low, and then I'll have a hard time getting it up to where it should be." "Great. You work for nothing just to get a job you don't know if you can do or how much it pays." "Just great," she said, stumping out of the room toward the kitchen. That really good feeling had just evaporated. Maybe it would come back when I proved that I could do the work and that it paid well. I couldn't wait to get started and write. After we finished the dinner dishes, I was off to our home office and onto the computer. I pulled out the English V Archeon of the instructions and began to read. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was mangled so badly that any idea of instructing someone on the maintenance and operation of this machine was a fantasy. I took a deep breath and began. I quit at midnight when the oncoming headache reached its peak. My neck was stiff from attempting to understand what they were trying to say, and then getting it down on the word processor. I had managed about a page and a half of the 6-page instructions. It was slow going, but gradually I was beginning to see a pattern developing. It took 1 hour just to do the first paragraph, while the last one I tackled took a little less than 30 minutes. Judy had long since gone to bed when I finally turned out the light and headed off to our bedroom. I was sure I would sleep well. I could feel the fatigue from my concentrated effort. After taking a couple of Tile and all, I slipped into our bed and almost instantly fell asleep. When I awoke, Judy was already up and dressed, having her usual yogurt and granola breakfast. She didn't drink coffee, so it was no surprise there was none made. I, on the other hand, was now a confirmed coffeeholic, at least until about 11 a.m. When I usually quit, I said good morning, and she mumbled something that might have been similar. 2 minutes later, she was up, and after giving me her usual quick peck on the cheek, she was on her way to work. I looked at the clock, 7:10 a.m. I went back to our office and began reviewing last night's work. I noticed a couple of small errors that I had missed early on, but other than that, it looked pretty good. I picked up where I left off, and within a few minutes I was rolling again. I was on my second or third cup of coffee when I heard a familiar voice. "Yo, it's me again, handsome," Cindy called from the back door. I could almost hear the smile in her voice. "Come on in, Cindy, grab a coffee. I'm in my office." I heard her open the cupboard and then the fridge, and a moment later she wandered into the office. My, aren't you the picture of elegance?" she said sarcastically. I was sitting in my usual nightwear, a t-shirt and boxers. Just because I haven't shaved, brushed my teeth, showered, or dressed is no reason to think I'm a slob, I shot back. Cindy just laughed. It's a good thing you're handsome. What are you working on? Well, I am currently on page 3 of 6 translating the instructions for the operation and maintenance of the Heavenly Blossom model, 356K 14 thickness planer, I stated emphatically. Cindy burst out laughing again. Where do they get those goofy names from? I shrugged. Don't know, don't care. However, this test drive is tougher than I thought. I spent 5 hours last night just getting the first page and a half done. I think I figured out the lingo now, so it's going much quicker. I should have this finished by noon and can start on the French. And you're doing this for free. Yeah, you sound like Judy, I said, giving her a stern look. Sorry, I take it she wasn't impressed. You could say that. However, what will matter to her are the results in a day or so. I don't know if this is something I can do and whether it's worth doing. Good luck. I have faith in you, Jake. I think you're going to surprise Judy. That was Cindy for you, always positive, always upbeat, always straight to the point. We sat sipping our coffees for a couple of minutes before Cindy broke the silence. Jake, can I ask you a personal question? Sure, shoot. Do you think you and Judy are happy? I mean, really happy? I sat for a moment staring at my coffee cup, not answering the question. Never mind, it's none of my business. I'm sorry, I asked, she said quietly. It is a damn good question, Cindy, a damn good one. I left it at that as I expected. I finished the English version at around 1,130 and called Mr. Lewis. I told him I'd have the French done this afternoon and I could drop it off at his office. He was surprised and pleased. He told me to come any time I was ready, and I felt good knowing this was important to him. It had been a while since I had written any French, but with the help of my handy dictionary and having lunch on the fly, I managed to complete the French version by 2:30 p.m. I went over the English version again and then the French once more. I didn't see any errors, but Mr. Liu would be the judge of that. I dressed in my business clothes once more and headed off to his office to hand in my work. I sat in Mr. Lau's office as he looked over my English version, comparing it to the Chinese version he had beside it. I couldn't tell for sure, but I thought he was spot-checking various random paragraphs. I could see him nodding and occasionally circling a word here or there, but basically making few changes. He looked up from my work. Excellent, Mr. Jake. I will send your French and English versions to our translation service for verification. Assuming they approve your French, we have an agreement for your services. He had called me Mr. Jake from the first meeting since trying to pronounce my last name was nearly impossible for him. How many hours did you spend on this? Dee asked. 5 last night and 6 today, 11 total. I said, very well, I will have a check for $660 made out to you. You may pick it up tomorrow. He smiled. I thought we agreed that this was a free trial, a test to see if I could do the work. I'm almost certain you can do the work, Mr. Jake. I would not take advantage of you. I will pay for good work. I think we can do very good business together. That's very generous. Thank you very much, I said sincerely. To what company should I make this check? He asked, why me? I guess Jacob Folds. He looked at me seriously for a moment. May I suggest you incorporate yourself and set up your business? It will save you much trouble in the future. Also, it will deflect liability if there is a problem. I suggest you see a lawyer and get this done. Keep this money separate. You do not want a tax problem, especially if you become successful. He smiled. I do not deduct taxes. You have to look after that. You are a contractor in the eyes of Revenue Canada. Thank you for the advice. We'll do just that. I rose and shook his hand. Please let me know if there is any problem with the French version, I said as I was about to leave. Do you not want your next assignment? He asked, looking surprised. Well, yes, of course. If you're satisfied, I can do the job, I stammered. He smiled. I'm satisfied. I will be very surprised if your French version is not as good as your English. I must thank Miss Paula for telling you about me. He passed me another manual and we walked out back once more. After reviewing the machine and comparing the drawings, I was satisfied it was a current drawing. We shook hands and I left for home with a definite spring in my step $60 an hour. If I worked a standard 40-hour week, I would gross over $120,000 annually. Was there that much work available? The stack on Mr. Liu's sideboard looked pretty tall. I couldn't wait to tell Judy. Maybe this would change her opinion of my efforts. It seemed to lift Judith's spirit that I was being paid and that the rate was substantial. I told her about the stack of work on his desk waiting for my effort, and it seemed to cheer her up quite a bit. As a matter of fact, she even decided that tonight would be a good night to connect. I really was feeling a lot better about my future in US. It's funny how quickly things can change from good to bad and back to good again. I also found myself wanting to tell Cindy as well. After all, she was the one who had sparked the idea. I began work on the next manual the following morning. I was just as anxious to get started as I had been with the first one. This job turned out to be much easier first because the machine was more straightforward and mechanically simpler, and second because I had the experience to figure out what they were trying to say. I finished the English by 1 that afternoon and the French before supper time, a total of 8 hours. I would call Mr. Louis first thing in the morning and arrange to deliver my work that evening. I called my investment advisor, Carlo Petty, another ex-Montrealer. Carlo, I need your advice. I want to set up my own business and I need the name of a lawyer who can help me do that. Hey, you're going into business for yourself. His voice sounded like it was a happy surprise. Yeah, translation services. I explained the job to him and he was enthusiastic. Every time I look at something, it's made in China or somewhere in the Far East. You'll never run out of business, he proclaimed. I hope you're right now about that. Contact talk to Don Simmons, he's right here in this building. He specializes in business law and can get you set up properly, with all the forms you'll need. Get in touch with Betty to sort out the tax situation. She already does your and Judith's taxes, so she'll know what to do about the new business. Thanks, Carlo, I appreciate your help. Maybe you'll have something to put in our retirement savings this year. After all, good luck, Jake. I have a feeling you're going to do very well in this venture. Plus, Montreal guys know how to make things happen. Yeah, you know it, Carlo. Say hi to Monique for me. Talk to you later. I called Mr. Louis the next morning and he was happy to hear from me. He told me that the French translation was right on and no changes were necessary. He was anxious to see my next project. I drove to his office later that morning and delivered the next manual. Mr. Lewis, can we set up something so that I don't have to drive in every day? I can email my translations to you, but maybe if I took a week's worth at a time, I could just grind away on them and send you the finished copy when it's done. That would be acceptable. Also, if you allow me, I will deposit your payments directly into your account. That way I don't have to write a check and you get your money right away. That's great. But I have to set up an account for my business first. I'll let you know when that's done. Then we have an agreement. I am very happy to do business with you, Mr. Jake. Do you want me to have a contract written for your services? I thought about that. Why don't I talk to my business advisor and see what he thinks and let you know very well. We shook hands and I left after reviewing 5 new manuals and 5 machines. It took a little over an hour, but it was a good investment of my time. One of the drawings had an omission, and while it was for the correct machine, I needed to note the omission in my translation. Otherwise, it looked like 5 fairly straightforward jobs. By the end of the next week, I had a new career in my own business established. I was calling it Precise Word Services, nothing terribly catchy but explanatory. I had filed with the federal government for a GSD Goods and Services tax license number, and I had set up a separate bank account. I even had some business cards printed and designed a letterhead I could print on my own. On the advice of my new lawyer, I wrote a letter of understanding to Mr. Louis, outlining our agreement for translations for Precise Word Services. In the agreed hourly fee, I splurged and bought a color laser printer, keeping the receipt as a business expense. My tax advisor, Betty Jorgensen, gave me some advice on what was and was not a legitimate business expense, and I would pay close attention to that. By Thursday morning of that week, I had already finished the 5 manuals and returned them along with the translations to Mr. Louis. I picked up 6 more, reviewing the machines before leaving the premises. I was beginning to wonder just how many different machines he had and when we were going to run out of manuals. I had booked 46 hours by Thursday, making my income for the week almost $4,000, and I added Friday. And with the 6 new items, I would likely more than double that amount. I was working diligently in my home office. I don't think Judy so much of me. From the time she got up in the morning until she went to bed, I would come out for dinner, help with the dishes, and we would talk about whatever there was to talk about. But I was pretty much invisible. For the first few weeks, Judy was curious. She had shifted from disdain for my efforts to curiosity, as she saw how hard I was working. Naturally, she had some questions. How often do you get paid? She asked. I get paid for each job I hand in. I'm a contractor. I get a set amount without any taxes or other expenses deducted. It's up to me to look after all the other stuff. I could use some help right now. Money's a bit tight since you lost your job, she said, testing the waters. Okay, how much do you need? Can you spare $3,000? Yeah, I think so, I said carefully. I wasn't sure why, but I wasn't anxious to share with Judy just how lucrative this new business was. I was pulling down almost $3,000 a week, but that meant working 50-hour weeks. My new bank account was showing a balance of nearly $15,000. If Judy knew about that, she would quickly change her opinion of my efforts. But for some reason I couldn't explain. I had decided to be coy about it. I electronically moved $11,000 from my business account into our joint checking account and told Judy it had been looked after. She seemed a bit surprised, but at least pleased that I was back to contributing to the household and feeling good about myself again. I had only been out of work for 2 weeks, so I could hardly claim to have suffered before finding this new career. I decided to have a meeting with Mr. Louis to see just where this new business was going to go. I had a concern that it would suddenly dry up and I would be back to square one again. The upshot of the meeting was that he had much more complex machinery here and coming, which meant much more complex translations. I was going to have many more hours of work ahead of me. I could relax. He was certain it would be a long time before we ran out of manuals. The weather had turned warm again, and I was sitting on my balcony enjoying my usual coffee when the dulcet tones of Cindy Willows caught my attention. Hey, handsome, where have you been? Come on over, girl, I'll tell you all about it, I said, with what could only be described as a very self-satisfied tone. I was feeling pretty mellow right about now. My life was back on track. Cindy came in through the back door as usual, poured herself a coffee and came upstairs to our bedroom and out onto the balcony. I haven't seen much of you lately, she said with a look of pure curiosity. No, I've been working hard on my new job. I want you to know that you are now talking to the president and only employ you of Precise Word Services Incorporated. Jacob or false? Cindy laughed, just as I thought she would with my pompous little announcement. Jake the president, I don't think so. I tell you the truth, madam, I am it. I am the one, I am the boss, I am king. I guess that was a little over the top, but we were having fun with just how good I felt. And Cindy picked up on that right away. Got him, Jake, it's good to see you happy. It's been a while. Yeah, I guess it has. I feel like a big weight has been lifted off my shoulders and I can get going again. It's a good feeling. How does Judy feel about it? I turned and looked at her straight in the eye. She doesn't really know yet. You mean she can't decide? Oh no, I mean I haven't really told her just how good this business is. Oh, silence, Cindy. Do you remember asking me a certain question a while ago, if it's the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, you asked me if Judy and I were really happy, and I said I thought it was a good question. Or something like that. Yeah, I'm not so sure, and I'm alright. What's more, I'm not acting like I trust her. I haven't told her about how much money I'm making. I haven't lied to her, but I haven't volunteered to tell her either. Why, damned if I know. Do you ever get that feeling in the back of your neck when something isn't quite right? Yeah, sure, I've got that feeling. I've had it for a few weeks now. I can't put my finger on it, but something's different. Cindy didn't respond. She sat there sipping her coffee thinking, I suppose, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. If you were in my place, making a lot of money, would you tell Judy? Hell, what kind of a question is that, yeah? Sorry. Maybe I should have turned it around. If I made a bunch of money, would he tell you that isn't any better? Besides, don't you think that goes through my mind? Every month? We live on Al's commissions. We leave month to month. Some months are good and some aren't. We get by, but it's tough sometimes. I'd hate to think I would hold out on me. I think that's what's bugging me. I'm holding out on Judy, and I'm not sure why that's easy. You don't trust her, she said it flatly without any hesitation. You think I know I can tell there's something wrong between you two, and I'm pretty sure it isn't you. Why do you say that? I know you, Jake. You are right up front straight. No, I can tell down deep you're hurting. I've seen how Judy treats you when she thinks no one is paying attention. Maybe you don't want to see it, but I do. She acts like she married someone beneath her. I don't know why or what would make her think that, but that's how I feel her parents, I said quietly. Well, what about her parents? They don't think much of me. Maybe it's rubbing off on her. Are they screwing royalty or something? No, as far as I know her, Dad's a city employee and her mother works part-time at some market. Hardly royalty. Jesus, they ought to get down and kiss the ground you walk on. Nobody would treat her better than you do. I guess they had higher expectations for their daughter. Cindy flopped her head back on the chair. So what do you do now, she asked. Damned if I know. I still love her, but lately I'm not so sure she loves me. We just aren't close like we used to be. It's like I've disappointed her and she's given up on me. I hope I'm wrong. I do too, handsome, I do too. I really didn't have any reason to be suspicious of Judy. There weren't any signs she might be having an affair, at least none that I could detect. But a few weeks later, I got a reminder to pay attention to what was going on. Judy announced that there was a reorganization at the lab, and that she would be working a bit of overtime now and then until they got straightened out. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was unhappy or not. We seemed to be drifting apart, little by little, day by day. It made me sad. I was about to turn 28 and we had not yet agreed to start a family, and I wondered if we ever would. I had been working steadily on my translations, but I had curtailed my night work to give myself more time with Judy, even if it was just to watch television together. I felt it was necessary for me to try and reconnect with her. On top of that, I was contributing between $800 and $1,000 each week to our joint account. I explained that the business was now established and that I could afford to start contributing more to the household. I was billing an average of 9 hours each day, 5 days a week, which produced a gross of $2,700 each week. My account was growing by leaps and bounds, and even with my contributions to the joint account, Judy was more than pleased. We were back to where we were before I was terminated. I was hoping our personal relationship would also revert to when we were closer, but in spite of our improved financial situation, our love life remained cool. We would be intimate once or sometimes twice a week, but that was all, and no amount of coaxing was going to change. Mr. Lewis was happy and let me know that on a regular basis we had yet to receive a single complaint that the instructions were incorrect or indecipherable in either English or French. That was the only quality standard I believed in. As I got better at understanding the fractured English that the manufacturers we were using, it was taking me less and less time to do some of the simpler translations. I found I had some time. I could say for myself if I wanted to goof off and have lunch at a deli or a beer at the local. I could. I would make the time up in the evening or on the week, and if I had to, I didn't see much of Cindy after our intense conversation a few weeks earlier. The weather was cool and rainy, typical of the fall. The days were shorter and I found it easier to concentrate on work. There were fewer distractions. I started inviting Cindy to morning coffee, and after a while it became a daily event. It was our personal time when we could talk and not worry about anyone else hearing us. We were such good friends that nothing was out of bounds. "How's Judy?" Cindy asked, her voice calm. Same coolness as always. "I guess," I replied. "Do you think you guys will make it?" I'm almost tempted to say no, but I want to keep trying. "Both of you have to try if it's going to work." She said, "Yeah, I know, Jake. I think she's cheating on you." I froze in place. I couldn't move. Cindy would never say something like that. Lightly. "Who?" I managed to ask, feeling my heart race. "I don't know who." What else was I going to say? I lowered my head into my hands and remained silent. "It's not your fault, Jake. What difference does it make?" "None, I guess, but you didn't make this happen. She did." "Who is it? Her boss, Turnbull?" "I think his name is, yeah, that's him." "Do you know?" "How long?" "Not very. But he's not the first. When I found out, I caught her a few months ago." "Holy, who else has she been with?" "I don't know, but one's enough, isn't it?" "Yeah, more than enough. I'm going to kick him out. I've had it with him. This isn't the first time, and if I let him get away with it, it won't be the last. I'm looking for a job before I leave him. He'll never be reliable with alimony or child support, and I have no intention of seeing my kids live in poverty." "Jesus, Cindy, can this get any worse?" "I think I remember you asking me something like that when you were let go, and Judy gave you a hard time about it." "What a messed up situation," I groaned. She agreed. "Well, I guess that makes my financial planning a little different now. I'll be damned if I'm going to give her anything after this. Let her go mess around with Bobby Boy. He can support her. I can't blame you. Just don't do anything that'll land you in jail, Hanson. I count on you for my morning coffee." She grinned. "Well, let's see. Now you kick him out and I kick Judy out and we both move in together and life happily ever after," I said, only slightly sarcastically. "You're forgetting something, Jake. The kids forget them. If they don't come, the deal's off." Cindy laughed, but I could see tears in the corners of her eyes. This wasn't really funny, but we needed some relief. I laughed along with her. Damn, it was good to have someone I could talk to. We parked the problem of our spouses until tomorrow. I had work to complete, and I needed to find a way to get through living with Judy. Until I decided what to do, I found myself curiously detached from any emotional upheaval. I should have been furious with her. But at most I was angry and disappointed, not even surprised. I wondered how many others there had been besides Al and her boss. I found it relatively easy to act normal around Judy that evening. I didn't change anything in my behavior or habits. I acted just as I would on any other night. When we went to bed, it took me quite a while to fall asleep. That wasn't normal. I was thinking about what I should do about Judy. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted truth. It wasn't that I didn't trust Cindy's word, but I wanted to see it with my own eyes if I could. Judy made it easy for me. She announced the next morning that she had to work overtime again and wouldn't be home until late, usually around 10:00. I passed experience. I assumed that there was no overtime and that she was using it as an excuse to be with Bobby Boy. I phoned Cindy and told her what I had in mind. I wouldn't be home until shortly after 9:00, so I arranged to borrow her car to follow my wife and her friend. I parked in public with a view of the clinic parking lot. I got there around 5:00, assuming they would still be there. Judith's car was there, so I figured I had guessed right. About 10 minutes later, she came out of the lower entrance arm in arm with a tall guy. He was dressed in a nice suit, and they headed for the other end of the parking area from Judith's car. They got into a late-model Mercedes, so I started my car preparing to follow them. I had taken a couple of pictures of them with my digital camera. I'm no private detective, and a couple of times I thought I had lost them. But luck was with me as I saw them turn into a hotel parking lot. I hung back until they were in the lobby and then pulled up to the front entrance. I watched the man register, put away his credit card, and then head for the elevators. Each of them had a small overnight bag. They weren't going to bother with dinner. It was straight up to the room. I pulled away and headed for home. I'd seen all I needed to see. I had taken a number of pictures of them at the front desk and entering the elevator. I returned Cindy's car and told her what I'd witnessed. She gave me a hug and told me to cool down. We agreed to talk tomorrow about what each of us was going to do. I was in no mood to confront Judy tonight, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. Judy usually didn't go to work until 9:00 in the morning, and depending on what shift she had, she would be home in a time from 5:00 in the afternoon to 9:00 at night. That gave Cindy and me most of the day to talk about our plans before the kids got home. I was still in a state of confusion mixed with anger at Judah's betrayal. I wasn't seeing red, but I was definitely not going to let this go. The marriage would be terminated. Of that there was no doubt. "Tell me how you found out," I asked Cindy. The next morning, the Jungle Telegraph, one of the women that works with Judy, figured out that she and Turnbull were having an affair and said something to one of her friends, who said something to one of my friends who knew Judy was our next-door name. You know what it's like with gossip. It's no fun if you can't spread it around. I don't know if Judy realizes how many people are aware of her little adventure. Well, as far as she's concerned, the one that counts knows. I was still curious. How did you find out about Alan? Judy? Same way, except it was one of our nosy neighbors, Mrs. Bryson, was noticing how often I was over here visiting you. I was about to get annoyed at her when she said something about how close we were as neighbors, meaning the Willows and the Forts. I guess I'll have been dropping by your place when you were out on business. Now you have to admit that takes guts with me being right here anyway. The upshot was that Al was here when he said he was working. Why the hell Judy wouldn't want to get involved with him, I do not know. Maybe she believed his line about what a big deal he was at work. That's the only thing I can think of. I just shook my head, not understanding it any better than Cindy did. "Do you know if Turnbull is married?" she asked. "I think he is. In fact, I'm sure he is. I don't know much else about him." Cindy looked at me for a moment and picked up my phone book. She looked up Turnbull's number and gave me a knowing smile as she punched in the digits. "Hello, is this Mrs. Richard Turnbull?" Silence? "Oh, I'm sorry, I must have the wrong number. You don't have a daughter named Felicity, do you?" Silence. "I see, well, I'm very sorry to have bothered you. Goodbye." Cindy hung up the phone. "He's married and they have no children." I shook my head. This woman was clever. No wonder Al couldn't get away with trying to fool her. We sat quietly for a few moments. "I think we should make a visit to City Hall, Jake. I'd like to see the title on the clinic property." "What are you thinking?" I asked. "I'm just wondering what leverage you might have. You'd be surprised what a title search can turn up. Let's go, I have all the time in the world." She grinned. It took 10 minutes and $10 to find out that the title to the clinic property was in the name of Mrs. Diane Turnbull. The address corresponded to the home of Robert Turnbull. Well, guess who has the upper hand, Cindy murmured. Let me try. Lover boy's wife owns the building. And maybe he's only the manager. Very good, Jake. You go to the head of the class. I'll bet Judy doesn't know that. Yeah, if he's playing her, she's in for a nasty shock when I leave her. Ain't that a shame? Cindy chuckled. We left City Hall, and Cindy took me up on my offer to buy lunch. Every minute I spent with her made me feel better. Better about myself and better about my circumstances. The restaurant was no place to discuss our private affairs, so we waited until we were back at the townhouse. So now what do we do next, I wondered. Did you take pictures like I suggested? Cindy asked. Yeah, why don't we have a look at them? I volunteered as I reached for my camera and plugged it into my computer. The pictures downloaded quickly onto my screen. I went through them one by one. Well, it's not like you caught them in the act, but these shots at the hotel desk and at the elevator don't leave a lot of doubt about what they are up to. You could hire a private detective to get more incriminating evidence, but I don't know if it's worth the expense. Whether you divorce her for infidelity or just irreconcilable differences, it won't make much difference. You might as well save your money and get ready for the worst. I never thought it would come to this, I said, shaking my head in denial. No one ever does. I couldn't believe Hal would cheat on me either, but he did more than once. I'm just upset I can't leave him now. I need to find a job first. I've got to look after the kids. Cindy, I hope you don't think I'm interfering in your personal affairs, but I've been turning an idea over and over in my head. I want you to listen to it with an open mind. Try to look at it without prejudice. Do you think you can do that for me? I pleaded. She looked at me, concentrating on what I had just asked of her. I guess, so I'll try. That's all I can ask. I nodded in relief. The other day, when I first discovered the truth about Judy, I made some wisecrack about us moving in together, kids and all. It was just a throwaway line at the time, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. Don't jump on me just yet, I said quickly, as I saw her rise to say something. My income will be in excess of $125,000 annually. I have more work than I can handle, and I already know there's more out there if I wanted or needed it. I like what I'm doing, and it looks like I'm good at it, so I can sustain this lifestyle without burning myself out. I don't have to commute, so there's no stress, no deadlines that can't be met. I'm proposing that I buy a 4-bedroom house I've had my eye on for a couple of weeks. It's still in the same school district as we are in. Now you and the kids could move in as tenants until you find some work that you like. No strings attached. Jake, that's a lovely thought, but I couldn't do that to you. What about your personal life? What about your future? Surely you don't want to stay single forever, do you? No, of course not. I'm not saying this arrangement has to be permanent. If you find a good job and want to move out, then you'd be free to do so. At least you'd know you were in a safe environment with the kids and they wouldn't have to change schools. Jake, you know I think the world of you, but this isn't fair to you. If I did that and then moved out, what the hell would you do with a 4-bedroom house? I shrugged. Maybe you'll decide not to move out, I said, almost cringing when it came out. Cindy looked at me, her eyes getting wider. Are you trying to tell me you have feelings for me? She asked carefully. I nodded. Sorry, but I'm afraid so. Oh, now I'm really, Jake, don't do this to me. Do what I asked, with a slight smile. Don't mess with my head, Jake, this is too much. I haven't even kicked all out and you're coming on to me. Jesus, that's not fair. Yeah, I know, but then again, what they did to us isn't fair either. This isn't about fair. This is about what we both know. If the way I feel for you isn't how you feel for me, just say so. Cindy sat quietly and I could see the tears forming in her eyes. Had I pushed it too far too fast? She stood and began wandering around the kitchen and then out into the living room. She was shaking her head and mumbling to herself as she did so. That was a good sign in my mind. She hadn't said no and she hadn't slapped me, so she wasn't sure of her decision and wasn't offended. Damn you, Jake, she finally said, walking toward me. How could you? Those were the last words I heard as she wrapped her arms around me in a warm embrace. If I was going to be in such a situation, this was the way to go. I just held on and she squeezed me tightly. When she finally let go, I rose from my kitchen chair and put my arms around her. Can I take that as a yes? I asked a whole. Of course you can. How the hell could I say no to you? She cried, wiping tears from her eyes but smiling just the same. No strings, Jake, if it works, grid 8. If not, no strings. She stood there looking into my eyes, shaking her head back and forth. I'm going to make sure it works. she said, then burst out crying. Me too, I said. I had a feeling that we were going to get over the next ugly parts of our lives, and then things were going to be different. Very different. Don Simmons recommended a family services law firm, and I took his advice and gave him a retainer. I had made a decision that I would not try to hide my new income during the divorce, although it would hurt to have to give any of it to Judy. I really didn't need the legal problems and extra expense. If and when she found out the truth about my new business, I would disclose everything, but I would make any trade I could to prevent her from getting alimony. I was not about to reward her for her betrayal. My lawyer was an older woman in her 60s, Kinsey. Despite her age, she was sharp, and more importantly, she was out to checked my interests. I revealed everything to her, and she made an interesting suggestion. She proposed that we play a game of bluff with Judy. Assuming Judy still didn't know much about my new job, she might be encouraged to abandon the marriage, with a promise of division of current assets and no alimony. We didn't have to disclose what those assets were unless we were deposed. I could also suggest I wouldn't sue the lab and her boss for marital interference. It would be worth a try. I told Marta I would let her know when I intended to serve my wife, but she could draw up and record the appropriate documents immediately. The next week went by uneventfully. Judy had 2 more overtime sessions, but I didn't bother to follow her. Marta called and indicated all the documents were prepared, and I could serve Judy whenever I wanted. I thanked her and immediately called Cindy D to Cindy. I've got the papers, and now I just have to work out how I'm going to do it. Want to come over? Sure, I'll be right there. Get the coffee ready. We sat at the kitchen table and drank our coffee, chatting about inconsequential things I couldn't stall any longer. The way I see it going down, I'm going to confront her tonight. I'm going to tell her I know about Robert Turnbull, and if necessary, I'll hand her the divorce papers. If she decides to kick up a fuss, I'll show her the pictures and tell her I have witnesses that will testify. I'm gambling, Mrs. Turnbull doesn't know anything about their situation, so my threat to sue might turn the tide. Martha said it was important to make it look to Judy like she didn't have an easy way out. The rest is going to be up to her. I have no idea how she's going to react, but I'm going to have to be careful not to let on bluffing her. If she gets aggressive, then all bets are off. I'll move out, she can get a lawyer, and we can do get out. I hope that doesn't happen, but you never know. With Judy, have you packed a bag? Cindy asked. No, but I will before she's due home. Apparently there's no overtime tonight, I smirked. Cindy leaned over, kissed me lightly, and gave me a hug. Good luck. Tell me all about it when this is done. We need to figure out how to deal with Al. That's going to be a lot uglier. I nodded. She was right. Al would undoubtedly be a problem. His ego would be wounded, and I was pretty sure he wouldn't go quietly. Cindy and I had already decided that she wouldn't move out of their townhouse until the dust had settled. If I refused to leave, she would sleep in Annie's room until she was ready to go. For the sake of continuity, to confirm my confidence in Marnie Kenzie, I lost Cindy enough for her retainer, and we set about double-teaming our wayward spouses. That night, we went through our usual routine at supper, and when we finished, I told Judy I wanted to talk to her. I could see her stiffen, probably assuming it was another we're not close enough talk. Judy, I'm aware of your affair with Robert Turnbull. Since you have such little regard for me or our marriage, I have decided to divorce you. Here's the paperwork, I said in a calm, level voice. I was surprised at how unemotional I was, considering this woman had consumed the last 7 years of my life. The look on her face was something to behold. To say I caught her by surprise would be an understatement. I thought for a moment she was going to choke as she gasped for air, coughing and spluttering. At length she got herself under control. How was all she could manage? You weren't very discreet. Quite a number of people besides your coworkers were aware of your affair with your boss. Oh God, I'm sorry, Jake. I wish I could say something. I shrugged. I'm proposing we split everything 50/50. We can put the townhouse up for sale and split the equity we have in it. You can buy me out if you want. I won't be living here again. I was calm and clear-headed. She nodded. That's fair, she said, not being able to look at me. I couldn't resist asking why she hadn't said anything immediately. I wondered if she was trying to formulate an excuse. But that wasn't the case. I thought Robert would give me a better life. He's very successful, and I thought he would give me a better life. I toyed with the idea of bursting her bubble, but decided against it. Don't overplay your hand were the last words, More Toad said to me. Well, for what it's worth, I hope you can be happy. You obviously weren't happy with me. It wasn't you, Jake. You were kind and hardworking and always there for me. I guess I just wanted something more out of my life than you could give me an upgrade, I said absently. What? No, not that. Well, maybe Robert is very well off. He will give me a good life after his divorce. He's married, I said in surprise. She nodded. I'm not proud of that. We cheating on you and him cheating on her, but we were so good together. Her voice trailed off. I'm moving out, Judy. I'll be in a local motel for a while until I find a place to live. If you agree to the settlement, I suggested, you'll find the papers in here and all you have to do is sign them. You may want to consult a lawyer just for your protection, I said, almost holding my breath. I wanted that offer at least on record. No, I won't fight it. I've hurt you and I'm to blame. $5,050 is more than fair. I'll sign them tonight. You can take them with you when you go. She still hadn't been able to look me in the eye. I stopped in the living room. When I came from the bedroom with my back, she registered some surprise when she saw I was already packed, but said nothing. She handed me the signed papers, and I looked to make sure they were properly done and folded them and put them in my pocket. If you don't mind, I'll stop by tomorrow and get most of my things. I need to download my files from the computer to know. No, of course not. This is still your house, Jake. She looked up at me finally, and the sadness in her eyes was almost enough to make me reconsider. She looked so defeated. I took a step toward her, leaned and kissed her cheek. Goodbye, Judy, I said, and turned to walk out the door, closing it quietly behind me. I had one, but I had lost. I would have my freedom on my terms, but I had lost what I had hoped for. It seemed such a shabby business, but I would never kid myself that I could live with her after what she had done. I drove to the local motel and went directly to my room I had checked in earlier that afternoon. Found Martin the next morning and told her about my confrontation with Judy. She was pleased that it had gone so easily. No bludgeon, no recriminations, not even any tears, some remorse, some apology. But all in all, a quiet ending to my marriage. I thanked her for her advice and hung up.